All right, welcome back to the Survivor Conquest podcast, season 47, episode 3 recap. I'm gonna introduce myself. My name is Isaiah.
I am Kyle, and joining us today is a brand new guest, a different Michael this time. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's up, guys? I'm honored to be here for the Survivor
Yeah,
Conquest podcast. Um, I know my name is Michael, so that might be a little confusing. So, you guys watching at home, you can call me Stallings. That's how
all
I
of them,
prefer.
all of them. Hey, episode one, Conquest podcast, a resounding success so far. I mean, I'm waiting for my revenue check to come in, Isaiah. I'm assuming you're going to split that with me. But episode one, like
Yeah,
120 views. Episode two, sitting right there around like 40 something. But Stallings, I think that's because Fisher dragged us down. So you're going to have to boost this up, or you're never
Bro.
getting back on this podcast. Anyway, I freshly finished the episode. That's why we were delayed in recording this. My winner pick is gone. Asia, no. Oh, I felt so good about her too. Man, I think I made this comparison. It may have been on the podcast or off the podcast. I think it was off the podcast, but I kind of compared her to Swati from 42. And that I remember Swati having a decent first couple episodes, and then just her boot episode, it just kind of turns around on her. And even still, I mean, I just said it before we started recording this, but this was my favorite episode. I loved the dynamics this episode from beginning to end. I feel like we got enough from everybody. Even some people like Tiana didn't get a confessional, but I still feel like I know who Tiana is. The only person who, despite them getting a confessional this episode and a decent amount of time of them sitting on a bench, I still don't know who Genevieve is. We got a confessional from her, but I don't even remember what it was. But she's my Canadian representation. I really like this episode. The dynamics we're going to get into, but I'll let you two take over. So whichever one of you wants to air your early thoughts right now, go ahead.
yeah. I will agree with you. It is also my favorite episode of the season so far. I know we've only had three. And also, by the way, the confessional that Genevieve had was about the fish that Rome caught and how Rome decided to eat two.
Very insightful, good
Right.
commentary. I
Yes.
know so much more about Genevieve now.
No, but all jokes aside, we actually did not, I don't think we saw Genevieve provide any sort of strategic insight at all, not even on camera. Like, not like, I don't
All I know is that she's apparently with Rome. Don't know why anyone would be with Rome beyond him having a mountain of advantages,
know.
but
Episode one,
yeah.
she talked about liking Rome's like enthusiasm.
Okay.
So,
Anyway, Stallings, what
uh,
are your thoughts?
I agree with you too. This was by far the best episode. We had just, I mean, you had a million things because you had the journey, we had the fallout from the first real blind side of the season, and you had the ridiculous tribal that we'll get into later. But I am very happy because my winner pick is Rachel, and she's still flying high. As we saw
With a
with
bad back.
Sam and Annika's dispute going on, it seems like Rachel still won't be the target. But I feel like we should kind of dive into all the three tribes and like the
Yeah.
dynamic they got going on.
So, do we want to start with the Lavo tribe that went to tribal council? I feel like that's definitely the area where we're all going to
yeah.
have the most to say. So, I mean,
Sure,
Isaiah,
let's
you start us
Sure.
off.
Yeah. So we got like a little like camp life scene with Rome and the fish. And honestly, I don't know what to like think of Rome because I believe Soul said this episode. Either he is the best Survivor player he's ever seen or the worst. I don't think he's necessarily either, but now like after this episode, I think he has a lot more longevity in the game. I think he's probably in a better spot and can do a lot better than we initially thought because I was thinking the exact same thing that Tini was thinking when Rome shared the information with the Steel Vote and the Idol. Like I'm not like me as a Survivor player, I'd be like, damn, now I actually kind of want to keep him because he has all this power and he's trusting me to actually like tell me all this information. So I think, yeah, Rome. I mean, I don't know. Very confusing episode for Rome because you'd think like with what he did with the fish. I mean, instant. I mean, he was already a target, but it'd be more like incentive to like get him out. But I don't know. I think he's kind of sitting pretty sort of. I don't think he'd be next to go because I think Teeny, Keyshawn, Roman, Genevieve actually, from what it appears, act will be the solid
Yeah.
core four of the tribe.
I feel like it's not impossible we could see him go home, but Rome is I love having Rome on this season, even though I want him to get voted out so badly. But that is awesome for Survivor because I don't hate him. I don't hate any Survivor player. I mean, I'm sure there's a few decrepit, cruel few that I could hate because they're just actual fucked up people. But on a player level, as on a character level, Rome is just so irritating, and I love that because I love that we're finally getting some people that it's just like, man, I fucking hate every time you talk, you annoy the shit out of me, but you're such an amazing character. And the best part for me is Rome is not the best Survivor player. He is not Boston Rob's godson, but he has enough game sense to be dangerous. And on top of that, he has this treasure trove in his back pocket of advantages that keep him around. And initially, I was, kind of rooting for Rome because he was this kind of savvy player who was a bit too arrogant for his own good, but he had this idol that could keep him around for an extra tribal council. Now he's used that idol, but he has a steal of it, but he's also flying high thinking he's running everything. So he's way too arrogant for me, but as a character, I love him. And I think as a player, he's so interesting because he is just capable enough to get by, but he is not as great as he seems. And I'm really curious to see exactly where they go with him moving forward.
I think you got to give a special shout out on the Red Tribe to Teeny because before the season, I would have her name is Teeny. Like I would have ruled her off as like one of the first boots for sure, but she's taking every single thing that's happening on the tribe and using it for her benefit. Like the fact that she's probably domineered the entire vote that went on. And if I'm her and if I'm anybody else in the Red Tribe, I'm keeping Rome around because now that he's used this idol, he's telling you about these advantages. Like you know how he acts, and it's almost like the saying, it's like it's better to go with the devil that you do know rather than the devil that you don't, where they know how Rome's chaotic and loud and not doing a great social game. So they should be thinking like that's someone that's not gonna merge with people. What he's not gonna build those relationships with the other tribes. He's already being chaotic and out there. So that's someone that you want to keep in because you know exactly how he plays. But honestly, I'm way more interested now to see because obviously the red tribe laid their cards out on the table, but I'm still interested to see what the yellow tribe does because it's really unsure at this point because I feel like the edit is showing all these scenes of like giving Andy hope and Sam and Annika arguing, but then you come back to the other fact of like Annika doing well at the challenge or Annika um not, she's clicking well with the girls, so it's just a matter of when will we see them have to make that decision.
Definitely. I mean, I don't, I feel like each tribe has the blue tribe and coincidentally has like the least interesting dynamics, but even still, like I like everyone on that tribe. I find the dynamics of each person on that tribe so interesting. But I do agree with you. Teeny deserves huge props. She is a very, very strong player. I think she can go very, very far in this game. It's difficult for me because I do agree with you. Like if I were a player, I, on a personal level, would want to keep Saul around. If this tribe goes back to tribal council, I want to keep Saul around so bad because Saul just seems like a cool guy. He's chill. He's laid back. He's someone I can get along with pretty well. But Rome is just like, I want you to go home at like final six or something because you're an idiot, but you're predictable. And that's just like, I don't know. Like I would hate living with Rome, but I would love playing with Rome on a strategic level because I feel like he's predictable enough, but at the same time, I did touch on it earlier. I feel like he's savvy enough to know when to flip on people. Yes, maybe he's predictable now when he has these clear direct enemies, but put him on a larger tribe and maybe he's just like, I remember when Teeny drove Kashan over to my box and then showed him the idol that I was going to get. I still know I can't trust you. Or was that Asian? No, that was Teeny.
No, Stevie.
Um, yeah, it was Teeny. So like he could remember that. I feel like they are able to trust him now, but I feel like it would be a dangerous gamble taking him pretty far in the game. But I am really, really curious to see exactly how they move forward. Touching on the Yellow Tribe, I feel like I agree with you that maybe we just see Andy go home. But I think the most predictable outcome we see for this tribe is they lose a challenge. Andy is the major contributing factor to them losing that challenge. And then they push this narrative of, well, Annika's decent in challenges. Maybe we keep her and take out Andy, who's a liability. But then we see Sam whip out the idol, plays it on Andy. Annika goes home, especially with Annika not having a vote. And I have a feeling that's probably going to get back around to Sam and potentially Andy. I think that's probably what we're going to see happen. And I wouldn't say no to a correct idol player, to a close to a correct idol play. That would be pretty interesting. But remains to be seen.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk a bit more about, I mean, there's a lot to talk about in terms of the Red Tribe. The vote. So I
Yeah.
believe Rome, Genevieve, Keyshawn voted for Asia. Teeny voted for Seoul. Seoul voted for Rome. And am I missing anything? Asia.
You voted for Genevieve.
Asia voted for Genevieve, right? So my question is, I don't know what you guys think about this. I guess talking about Teeny, because it seems like Teeny's playing the best, and I don't really know if you want to give her the credit for running the vote, because it seemed like Rome was the one really pushing for Asia. Did Teeny like know that Asia was going, or did Teeny just throw her vote onto Seoul because she kind of just like felt bad and didn't want to vote Asia? Because it was very apparent that she didn't want to vote her and wanted to work with her in the game, uh, in episode one and throughout the season so far.
We think that, I mean, the immediately what I thought when I saw both, like I saw Seoul and Asia, and then I saw Genevieve and Rome. The best guess that I could give was that they were scared about what Rome was going, because I'm assuming pretty much everybody there knew that Rome was going to play an idol, but the question was like, for who? Especially because Rome wanted Asia out, but they kind of wanted Seoul out, and then Seoul and them kind of wanted Rome out, but then they had to vote for Genevieve, so it was like so I have a feeling Teeny was clued in on everything, so I think my best prediction would be that they thought that if Rome played an idol, I'll throw a vote on this person just to make sure that this doesn't happen. Because I'm assuming that I think Teeny had a conversation with Soul about saying if Rome plays the idol on Genevieve, like you're probably screwed. So maybe that was in his head of he's going to be cocky and he's going to play it on Genevieve. So then if I vote for Rome, maybe he'll go home like five nullified to one, something like that.
Yeah, I agree with Stallings. I feel like there's no way Teeny was out of the loop on this vote. As for who exactly gets firm credit for making this vote happen, I would lean more towards Teeny and to a lesser extent Kashawn, because seems more like somebody that while he had the strong arm to make sure his own elimination wasn't going to happen, he was able to strong arm people into working with him. I don't know if he's necessarily as capable of directing the vote where he wants to, and we saw that with him being manipulated, where Teeny wanted to get rid of Solomon over Asia, and then later it was Teeny that voiced, well, maybe if she's so firm on not wanting to take out Solomon, if Asia's not willing to turn on Solomon, then maybe I should just take out Asia instead. So I feel like that would probably direct me towards thinking that Teeny was the one that pushed it back towards him, especially considering we had a whole scene where Rome was all high and mighty about getting Asia out and then proceeded to be manipulated by Teeny in regards to taking out Solomon. So I feel like that's probably how it ended up breaking down. And touching on how the vote ended up as scattered as it was, I think it's not impossible, and it was talked about this episode, that maybe it was just a bit of shot in the dark, being scared of that, some prevention towards that, which honestly, I was expecting someone to play shot in the dark here. Like, I feel like I was literally waiting as they were going up to vote to see, are we going to see a shot of Saul writing down the name or writing down a name? Because I was feel like maybe Saul's going to play his shot in the dark, because very rarely, I feel like, especially in the last few seasons, do we see any discussion of the shot in the dark unless it's actually going to get played. And so we saw it get discussed tonight and not get played. So I think that's just kind of dynamic, that tribe. I feel like I would generally give credit to Teeny for that vote and attribute the paranoia and the scatteredness of the vote to maybe just being fear of shot in the dark. I talk too
Yeah.
much.
No, that was good. I mean, I'd say so. I agree with that. Do you guys think though that that was the right move to make to get rid of Asia? Because I think you could look at it from a different perspective and seeing that Asia is somebody who is possibly extremely loyal, not wanting to flip on her alliance because the initial core four was Sol, Asia, Tini, and Keyshawn.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have asked me at the ending of last week, never would I have thought Asia would be the one to go. I was pretty firm. I feel like Genevieve's not getting anything. I feel like they're just gonna have to be like, okay, it's us four. Rome has an idol. Who's the other person left? Genevieve. Let's put four on Genevieve. She's gone. Or maybe they split two and two, and then Genevieve's gone. But that didn't end up happening. We saw Asia go through some insane hijinks, which speaks to how frenetic the game is nowadays and how quickly things change in the new era. Um, Speaking from a personal level, I would love to have seen Genevieve go this episode. Just because, I mean, I love that she's from Canada, but that's all I know about her, and I don't even know that because I feel like it was told to us on the show. I know that because I just pay attention to who's Canadian on each season because I'm Canadian. But I know nothing about Genevieve. I wanted Asia to stick around not only because she's my winner pick, but because I know who Asia is. You know, she's a podcaster, which side note, horrible season for podcasters so far. But I know
Cool.
who is. I was really enjoying her presence. I don't know who the hell Genevieve is. I hope she gets something soon and doesn't just go back to being invisible. Because if she just remains to be this nothing presence, well, then I'm going to look at this season a bit lesser because there's just this one person that was, in my opinion, needlessly neglected. We could have gotten a couple confessionals about her thoughts on people, what she thinks should happen with the vote, even if it's just, I want to stick with Rome, or here's a fun fact about me. I have three dogs at home and I'm insane. I want to know something about Genevieve. So on a personal level, that's what I want to see. I also forgot exactly how this tangent started with what Isaiah asked, but I'm just going to let Stallings take over now.
No, you're good. It's just talking about the scatter. Because I mean, for me watching it, like I saw some people talking about how it was genuinely just such a shocking vote because you've got six people in a tribe. You see Rome, Genevieve, Seoul, Asia, and then you're sitting here, that's four already, and you got two more votes deciding who's going home, and you've got like a four tie so far. But I love that element of the shot in the dark because knowing like having to play with that gameplay of okay, someone always has a 1 in 6 chance of surviving. Like nobody is ever truly going to be out of the game because in the new era, it literally feels like every episode that it's getting impossible to predict who's going to win, who's going to go home because the gameplay flips on a dime because you put a lot of people out there besides people like Kyle, because Kyle is someone that you can kind of predict, with the way that he operates. Like Gabe lied to him, and Gabe was coming at him with all these plans. He doesn't trust it, so now he's going to go after the person that he morally feels like should go home. But for everything else, it flips on a dime, and I wouldn't be surprised if Soul is not the next person to leave the Red Tribe, and I wouldn't even be surprised if it was not Rome either, because those would be the two most obvious choices. Like you can never predict what's going to happen with any of them. And that's why I told someone I am so excited for this season's merge because I feel like you have so many power dynamics because you have people like Gabe who are just trying to take control of their entire tribe. You have people like Sam who are like very, very confident in the relationships that he has and the power that he has. Then you have people like Rome, and then you have people like Andy who are such outliers to the whole operation that like what do you even do with them because they're so socially obscure that they're so unpredictable with what they're going to say and what they're going to do. And it's crazy. I feel like everybody forgets the way that Andy actually like little on the first episode of the season, he laid out his entire gameplay and all of his secret moves to the entire beach. Like we've never seen anybody do that. It's like it was cringeworthy. It was so surprising, but yet now we're seeing all these scenes of him having game talks with Sierra, having the whole idol scenario with Sam, and I don't know. I'm just very excited to see them merge. I don't think they're gonna swap, which is really annoying, but I guess we can wait a few more episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too upset if they don't swap, mostly because I don't know. I feel like at least for a season like this, it doesn't need it. At least because I think this is like the first time in Survivor history that the first three people to go home were all from three different tribes. I think I saw that on Reddit that that's the first time this has ever happened. So like I feel like we're seeing equal amounts of each tribe. So it's not like 41 where I'm begging for the damn blue tribe to go to tribal council once just so I can see what would happen. So I can I've had enough of Shannon Ricard just picking off everyone else. I'm loving that we're getting these concrete dynamics. And I really feel like that's the buzzword for me this season so far, at least, is dynamic. And I agree. I'm excited to get to the merge because, at least for me, keeping these tribes the way they are right now, there is such interesting dynamics, or at least there's such interesting people on each tribe. I feel like I know everybody to a decent extent on each tribe besides Jeeves, that I'm excited to see all of these people come together and interact because right now we're just being presented these three different stories that are all going to come together and clash. And I'm so curious to see exactly how those different dynamics are going to come together, split apart, build anew. That's just something I'm really, really excited to see. And that's something I'm really, really enjoying about this season is that there's just so many different interesting people. Like even Kyle, like you said, he's a bit more loyalty, good old boy. I would give him a bit more credit. I think he's a bit smarter than that. We saw him go against Gabe, and you said it's just because he was just like thinking the moral thing. I just watched the episode, but I don't remember his wording exactly. I don't think that's exactly how he viewed it, where he just wanted to try and switch things on Gabe, or at least he didn't want to take out Tiana. But I would give Kyle a bit more credit, not just because we share a name, but because I think he is a bit smarter than that. Do I think he's going to be this amazing player that's going to rise like a phoenix? No, but I think he is a bit savvier than he's being led on to be. And this was a really big episode for him.
I was gonna say something that like Stalling said about Andy, like Andy just like I don't know, exposing his own game on the mat, episode one. I am very surprised when Keyshawn dropped the bomb. I guess it really wasn't that much of a bomb at Tribal Council that there was a core four sticking together. Like I feel like that
Yeah,
didn't get
I
like
forgot
any
about
attention at all whatsoever. I feel like me as a player, I do not know like who's the four. So I don't know.
Well,
I thought potentially like Keyshawn was gonna get in trouble for saying that, but I guess not. And I think I'll
um,
see if they talk about that once they get back to camp next episode.
I think, and I'll let Stallings touch it because Stallings hasn't spoken in a little bit here, but I think the reason why that didn't catch as much heat is because on that particular tribe, there was no one person that didn't consider themselves a part of 1-4.
That's
So
true.
no one was that alarmed when Kashan said that because everyone in some form or another was in a four with Kashan. So they're just assuming that when he says that, oh, he's talking about R4. So, I mean, I would be a bit thinking, okay, why is no one freaking out about this? But I'm not worried that there's a four that I'm not in initially, at least.
You know, I completely agree with that because but I also had the reaction when he said that of like I viewed Keyshawn as like someone a little younger and someone that I could see being a really, really good player, like someone like Omar, for example, someone like a Jesse that like is a lot more laid back and but a lot smarter and knows when to speak up, when to say certain things. So to hear him kind of let out that confidence, especially in the first tribal council, because he has no idea that it's gonna go his way. And granted, it did, and it was uh correct confidence, but it was just crazy to see him do that, especially because they ended up like the core four that they showed most in the episodes was the original one of Keyshawn, Soul, Asia, and
Teeny.
Teeny. But that's not the one they ended up sticking with. And Aisha did have a little bit of a reaction when she left. She kind of pointed and said, like, I'm hurt. And then she asked Soul, like, was it you? So I think what is the craziest part about having these three tribes of six is that there's just when they don't swap or anything, they have so much time to think and they have so much time because their odds of winning the challenge are greater. You've got like a 66% chance of winning rather than a 50. So in previous seasons, we've seen tribes win every single challenge. But for these guys, it just feels like it's just they just do blindside after blindside after blindside. And John was like John Levette was probably the easiest one that I was seeing the most coming. But other than that, these are blind sides that are on the first couple of days, you're leaving people out and isolating them. And it's just insane to think that these are the people that you've got to go around with. And especially knowing that you can't swap, these are the same dynamics that you're dealing with for about seven or eight tribal, six, seven tribal councils, depending on it. But I feel like we should
Yeah.
touch on like maybe like the journey, especially because it was so
Mm.
a new twist.
Yeah, that was interesting for me. I mean, it was very generic journey stuff. I feel like, put your hand in the bag, you have to do it. And then two people lose it, but we see Rome get a steal vote. I think honestly, the most interesting thing was less the outcome of each person putting their hand in the bag, more so the preamble to that with all of these people interacting. I mean, it was a very interesting three people to see interact, where we see Annika, Kyle, who's supposed to be the good old boy, and Rome, who is this frenetic, absolutely insane, boisterous character so far. And we see obviously Rome go right out. He's just like, Asia and Saul, they gotta go. Now Asia's already gone. So now it's just what is Saul just like this big target that Rome's hoping he'll be, but I don't know if Rome's gonna really, or I don't know if Saul's really gonna fit that mold for most people. But I don't know, at least for me, I found the preamble way more interesting than the journey itself with all those three people interacting. And obviously we got the our Sierra and Sam a couple, which was an interesting narrative to see come up this episode.
So I do want to ask because I don't remember. The three people who went, did they just like volunteer or did they do
I
some kind
think
of like,
Rome definitely Rome's tribe did rock, paper, scissors,
Rome's
and then
tried to rock, paper,
Annika
scissors.
volunteered.
Annika volunteered, and then no one objected. Although Sam secretly was just like, I want to object, but I'm assuming he's just like, I can't openly just oppose Annika like that. And then Kyle's tribe drew rocks.
okay, because I thought it was, I guess there is some kind of like random element there because I was very interested to see how those three were the ones that went to the journey because I think at first glance, knowing the gameplay and the dynamics so far, you can assume that each of those three are on the bottom of their respective tribes. So
Pretty
I thought
much, actually.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. Um, Beyond that, I mean, Stallings, if you have something to say on the journey, you can. I kind of said my piece.
I mean, for the twist part of it, I thought it was honestly, I wasn't the biggest fan of the fact that you had to reach in the bag and that like there was a 2 out of 3 chance you were going to lose your vote, which is I think it's a little bit crazy considering the last seasons it's been more about like will you take the risk and then they're saying like and two of like both people who lost their vote they didn't risk it, which I was actually a little bit surprised about because having an advantage versus having a lost vote. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people would want to take that chance again, but two is definitely concerning. But for them specifically, it was pretty interesting because Annika is in a spot where having a vote and not having a vote is actually a little bit indifferent for her because I feel like it's going to be like Andy would vote her and then Sam and Sierra would be like the deciding votes. So like even if she did have a vote, it would be 3-2 anyway. And then on the other tribe, like Kyle was literally on the bottom. So it's either going to be Sue and them get revenge and just vote him out again, or he's going to be put in a position of power. Because it's interesting. It's like we haven't seen a lot of dynamics where someone that loses their vote is the exact reason why they go home because they lose that majority because it feels like if they come back and say, "Hey, I lost my vote," then people have to make the decision of do we just vote him out or do we pile all of the numbers that we still do have on someone else? But the last thing I'll say is that I was actually it was kind of a light bulb for me when they talked about Sam and Sierra. Like you have to sit there and realize that like wow, like they have all that time on the island. They see these people for 5 minutes at like the start of the challenge. They already formulate those opinions of everybody else. And like they're like, oh, that guy's good at challenges. Like, I'm gonna get him out. Like, even though they watch a guy do a puzzle once and they're like, all right, that's my number one target. And they just have all these different thoughts about what's going on, and that might impact their gameplay going in. Like, if they think that Sam and Sierra are running the tribe, then they might go straight into it and target them, even though they've never met them. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I do agree. I think it's interesting. And one thing I forgot about, I don't know if it was Annika or Rome that had the line, but I think it was Rome. But someone had the line that they said that everyone's assuming that Sam's running that tribe anyway. So people are already looking at Sam. And while Sam is viewed as playing a pretty strong game on his tribe, at least as it stands, coming into the merge, I feel like he could be in a lot of hot water in that we've had a line already people are perceiving him to be the leader and that him and Sierra are a duo, that is really, really dangerous. And one thing I forgot about that I think is interesting that may have colored Kyle and Annika's decisions to not push it any further is that I'm pretty sure it said in the well, I know it did in the like info, like in the parchment that you read before you put your hand in the bag, it said you lose your vote and then you cannot cast any votes at the next tribal council no matter what. I didn't say no matter what, but it said you can't cast any votes. So I would read into that and say even if they got the steal a vote, they can't use it at the next tribal council because they just can't cast any
Uh,
votes, period. Because I'm pretty sure it said that, or maybe it said it on the parchment after they lost their vote, and it said you have lost your vote at the next tribal council. You cannot cast any votes. So it makes it seem, or at least it implies, that even if you stole somebody's vote, you can't use it. I would assume you're just not able to use that advantage. But because I'm pretty
so
sure it said that.
could you steal a vote? Like, let's say you lose your vote and then you have the steal, but you use it. So I take your vote, and then if I can't vote at all, could those two votes just be null and void? Like I've stolen your vote and it's now joining mine as a no vote for the night.
I would assume you're just not allowed to use the advantage. It also could just be that like maybe I'm reading too much into the wording, but I believe it did say you can't cast any votes at the next tribal council you attend, which would imply that even if you stole somebody's vote, you can't vote with that vote. But I'm not exactly sure. So I feel like I want to something I want to touch on is Sue this episode because Sue
She's
I'm
winning the
having
game.
a do Great, thanks, Isaiah. I'm having this dueling opinion where one part of me feels like she was being shown as arrogant by the edit this episode. Another part of me is really hanging on to the line where she talks about how she's in the aviation industry and she's used to guys like Kyle in the aviation industry who are because it's a male dominated industry and I feel like that's a line that you give someone, or the editors give someone when they really want you to root for them because they're touching on societal issues like that. But at the same time, I still got the vibe like Sue was acting really arrogant and like holding this grudge and it's like, I can't work with you. I can't trust you. But a part of me, like I said, I'm having this dueling mentality of are we supposed to view Sue as arrogant or are we supposed to view Kyle as this buffoon where Kyle was just kind of like he's like this male domineering figure because I didn't get that vibe from Kyle. And maybe it's just like Sue's commentary or they didn't have a better take to use. But I don't know. I'm just having this debate in my mind as to whether or not that was supposed to be entirely positive for Sue, where she's talking about how she's in this male-dominated industry and she's a woman. She's always underestimated in the aviation industry, something we're very obviously supposed to root for her in. And then we have her talk really arrogantly. She can't work with Kyle. And I don't know if I'm supposed to be using the word arrogant there, at least with how the show wants to present her. But I got the vibe that she was being arrogant there. But I also feel like the editors want us to root for Sue. So, like I said, I'm just having that dueling mentality in my mind of I don't know exactly how I'm supposed to feel about this.
You do know how you're supposed to feel. You're supposed to support her because she is the winner of Survivor 47. But I think it's a very
Okay.
good I think you talking about the Tuku tribe makes a good segue for I guess what I want to like bring up because I know you two actually talked about it off the podcast saying how like I think it's more likely that Gabe is actually going to get blindsided prematurely because, you
True.
know, Caroline and Sue. And I think honestly, seeing the aftermath, like after the tribal council, I think honestly they kind of prioritize each other more than they do Gabe. I think we're probably maybe underestimating a little bit their bond and their relationship. So I don't know if you guys want to comment on that because I know you guys had a discussion about that off camera like last week.
I think this episode showed that Gabe does not have a longevity in the game. I think everybody could have, it's tough because obviously you have very unexpected winners and you have unexpected blindsides, but if you really read into who Gabe is, like how he comes across as obviously he's already starting as a guy who's like, now being accused of having two female goats. It's when you have a personality like his and you have that scheming like aura about you, it's something that everybody's going to want to get rid of just because they know that they know that that's someone that might blindside them in the future. But as for Sue, real quick, I obviously got the vibe of because I'm a little bit. I think everybody roots for Kyle. I think that everybody kind of like has that sense of like, oh no, he's on the bottom. Like, he just wants to like he's out here for the adventure. Like I'm rooting for him. But with her, it's like when you think about it gameplay wise, that's someone who wrote your name down and then got blindsided at the tribal and then they come back and they come up with this story that this person Gabe that saved Sue essentially like flipped on the alliance he was originally put in like to say that he's now calling them goats and everything it just seems like a little bit of a seed that they would plant so she can't underestimate Kyle because you know she has to make sure that she's sticking with the people that are truly loyal. And for her, I mean, in the great sense of things, you're probably going to want to trust someone who worked with you and saved you other than someone who wrote your name down. But with the way that Gabe is, I could totally see him being flipped on. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't specifically talking gameplay wise. I think I agree with you. I mean, there is still kind of that interesting dynamic there of just like what you said, like Gabe is a lot. He's this very strategic player. He could be a good person to take out before he takes you out. And I think that could be something that Sue's thinking about. But at the same time, it makes sense to take out Kyle. Kyle wrote down your name. Clearly, you're not somebody that he wanted around. Obviously, he may need to rely on you now, and he's going to try and make something happen. But it's not a wrong choice to take out Kyle. I was more speaking from the edit of I don't know how exactly it was being presented to us. I was having this interesting debate within myself of exactly how it was supposed to be perceived by the audience because I just wasn't sure on that front. Although I am really curious because I don't know. Maybe it's just my own bias because we share the same name, but I find it difficult to imagine Kyle getting taken out. At the same time, I feel like it could be the easiest thing in the world to see that tribe go to tribal council and then they make it seem like maybe he's going to try and take out Gabe, but then Kyle just goes like 4-1. I feel like that could be the easiest thing in the world, but something in my gut tells me maybe there's a chance something else happens, but it's really, really difficult because I'm trying to negate that bias of we have the same name, he's gonna win.
I was gonna say, so if you don't see that happening, then what do you see happening? Because obviously, like Sue just was not buying what Kyle was selling. So who is he really going to flip? I mean, Sue and Caroline are like a pair, that's two. And if they side with Gabe, that's three. So what kind of way out do you really see that Kyle has? And he also doesn't have a vote.
I think we could see the situation where he has Tiana with him, I think, already, most likely. At least that's how it was presented. We obviously didn't get Tiana's perspective this episode. She was the only one this episode to come out with no confessionals, so we didn't get her perspective on things. But I don't think it's impossible that we see Caroline want to take out Gabe. She talks to Sue. They all come together and they say Tiana's on board to take out Gabe. They take out Gabe. I don't think that's impossible we see that happen. I think the most likely situation is that Kyle goes home. It's just my gut that for some reason it's like, I don't know, he's not being presented as somebody that they're setting up to go home necessarily. He seems too likable. I don't know. Like I feel like they're investing a lot in him. But I don't know. I'm trying to work it through in my brain. I just get this funny gut feeling, especially with that Tuku tribe, that it seems so on paper easy but for some reason, and maybe it's the dynamics on the other tribe being so crazy, I feel like there's more going on that tribe, and we could see something more happen. And I mean, admittedly, never in a million years would I have thought Asia would go going into this episode. So maybe no one really is safe. Um, I don't know. I mean, I can touch a bit on the preview for episode 4, but Stallings, I don't know. Did you see the preview?
I mean, yeah, no, I saw
Okay.
glimpses of it.
Okay, so yeah, so we saw Tuku. Click off. Don't if you don't want spoilers. We saw Tuku come across this blood around the well. Like they're just like, oh, we come across a bunch of blood around the well, and Sue's nowhere to be found. It's very obvious that it's going to be the fake blood. It's going to be the red paint that we saw in 42, and Sue's probably going to find the rehidden idol. That would be my guess. So maybe Sue could lose her vote or something like that, or she's going to get a target on her back because she now has an idol. but the dynamics are still going to be shifting, and I am really, really curious to see how they shake out. But I'll just end off by reiterating what I said. It's just like it seems so easy on paper, that Tuku tribe, but something in my gut just tells me like it's a bit more dynamic than it seems, or at least it's going to be.
Well, we also saw that um Gabe, unless I'm dreaming, Gabe was planning on going after Tiana if he got the chance. So my best prediction is that, Gabe's someone that he wants to get what he wants. He blindsided TK in the first thing. He doesn't mess around. So he's gonna go after her, but I feel like because he might go after her, due to his reputation and due to the way that I just see Caroline and Sue maneuvering, I don't think they're necessarily going to have a problem with Tiana. So I guess that could be Kyle's way of getting out of being voted out um because that's going to go on. Because clearly Gabe does not want Kyle to go home. So
Yeah,
it's that's his only chance. So, because I think it would get to a point where if Gabe does follow through with that, they're gonna tell Tiana, and then Tiana's gonna want to get rid of Gabe. Like she still likes Kyle. So the only one that doesn't really love Kyle is Sue, and I guess by association, Caroline's not his biggest fan. It's interesting though. I feel like we haven't seen Caroline and Kyle have really
no,
any substantial interactions or any at all. So it's hard to tell because I she seems like a strategic player. Like she seems like someone that we got the confessional of her, celebrating the blind side. So it's weird that, I feel like she wouldn't just automatically tie herself to Sue and then just hide in the background and not have her own storyline to go with. But I agree with you. I think Survivor loves a little bit of the story aspect in some sense because they don't want it to be like a total just new episode, new episode, new episode. They want something to be correlating. And Kyle is just feels like a little bit too important of a character. And they wouldn't have shown those preview scenes of Gabe wanting Tiana out and then everything like that. And they didn't even go to tribal. So it feels like it's foreshadowing something like that.
yeah. I mean, I am really curious because this is the first time, like I said earlier, that we've seen three different people from three different tribes go as the Versary Roots, which for me in a season like this, I love that because I want to see each tribe in the pre-merge go to tribal council to see those dynamics tested, to see how things shift once people are actually faced with tribal council. Now we've seen each tribe go to tribal council once. One tribe next week is going to be facing their second tribal council, and I'm really curious to see which one it is going to be because I mean I think we're getting like in like such a developed three tribes here that I'm interested to see each tribe go to tribal council, and I feel like bar Genevieve, like I'm invested in every single person, be it that I like them or I don't like them. I'm invested in each person. I know who each person is, and that's one thing I really appreciate about this season.
Poor Genevieve. Is it just me though? I mean, I know we talked about like this season, I guess, being very unpredictable with these last second moves, but I feel like for like Gata, I think it's pretty safe to say like Annika's gonna go, at least in my opinion. Tuku, maybe Kyle or Tiana. I feel like that three's gonna stay together, but Lavo, to be honest, I honestly don't know where it's gonna go. I feel like Lavo, in my opinion, is like the
Lavo,
most
oh,
unpredictable tribe.
Lavo is really interesting. I think Tuku, for me, I think the main thing that I'm kind of coming in on is that it just feels too easy. And this season has not been one of like the immediately obvious thing is going to happen. So like I think the most obvious vote was TK in my opinion. And like I saw that one coming easy enough. I kind of saw John coming, but Asia like at the beginning of the episode I wouldn't have predicted. And so I feel like it's difficult because it just feels too easy on that tribe. But I agree that Lavo tribe, it would be so interesting to see them go back to tribal council. The easy thing is just to say the four stick together and take out Saul, but I don't know. Like I don't want to see Saul go. I feel like Saul's not being set up to go, and there's so much tension with Rome and with Genevieve. I feel like we could see Genevieve go here because like I can't imagine Genevieve making a deep run. Maybe that's just the hopeful, I want this person I don't know off my screen. But I feel like Genevieve can't be being set up for a deep run in this season. So maybe there's some hijinks to where she goes home. Like they convince Rome, like, we're with you. We're just going to take out Solomon. And then they take out Genevieve 3-2. But at the same time, it makes sense to take out Rome there because Rome has the steal a vote. So it's just very interesting. And again, in the preview, we did see Solomon out looking for the idol. And honestly, this was like the main thing that was just like, come on, Rome, like you're way too much. Is that Saul's asking, and admittedly, he's looking for an idol, so you can't blame Rome really. But Saul's just like, can I get 1 minute's peace? And then Rome's just like, no, no, I don't. This is Survivor. I don't have to do that. He's just following him around the jungle. I'm just like, okay, Rome, on a game level, I understand it, but holy shit, if I was on the island, I would want to suck you in the mouth. Oh my goodness. Like, leave me alone. I want to look for my idol. It could also just be that honestly, like, Saul is quiet, but he's so likable. I feel like he just has that presence. Like, he just seems like a really likable dude.
He honestly gives me those vibes of like The Office, where like Rome does something really like goofy, and then it's just like it pans to the camera of like Soul just looking around, being like, "You guys see this?" But
Yeah.
in my opinion, I see a dynamic where like Teeny doesn't fully trust Rome. Rome doesn't fully trust Teeny, and I get that sense of, well, it first depends because they already discussed like, okay, Rome, after you play this idol, it's gonna be a mad hunt. So they were considering that Soul would be the one looking for the idol. That's why he almost went home. But so after they find that idol, it is that dynamic of you have Teeny and Keyshawn, then you have Rome and Genevieve, and then you have Soul. So I could totally see Teeny getting a little bit weary of Genevieve and saying like, I don't necessarily know if I want Rome to have this locked in ally because he's already dangerous enough with a steal a vote. Um, and I could see Rome sticking as a personal thing, like, oh, I'm still gonna vote for Soul no matter what. Like, I don't see him having any reason to vote for Teeny or Keyshawn. So the best thing I could say is that they would probably blindside Genevieve, and leave Rome out, and then we'd see him have like confessional of like finally being like a little bit humbled because you had this big idol play. He sent Asia home, but now it would make sense that they're setting him up to be really cocky and then being all brought down when Genevieve gets sent home. That's what I would
Yeah,
say.
I think on paper it makes all the more sense to take out Rome if they go back to the tribal council. Because if you're teeny and you don't want Saul to go, well then you're already thinking, okay, I don't want Saul to go because then if we go back to tribal council, Rome and Genevieve are there, but Rome has a steal a vote. So even if it's supposed to be 2-2, he can steal a vote and then it's 3-1 and we're screwed. So on that level, if you're at this 5-person tribe, then you want to take out Rome because then you're taking out the steal of it with Rome, which is a really important piece of this puzzle that hasn't really been considered. Is that, Rome has that steal vote. That is a very, very powerful advantage on a small tribe like that. As it stands right now, him and Genevieve could have majority at the next tribal council if he goes and steals a vote. But if he has the trust of Teeny and Kashawn, then maybe he wants to try and save it for another tribal council. But if they want to try and take out Rome with the steal vote, the next tribal is their chance to do it. I can't imagine unless they're able to flip Genevieve, which we have no read on Genevieve. We don't really know where her mind's at other than that she's with Rome right now. But it's seemingly on paper, at least, this is the tribal to do that. So I'm really, really curious to see if that would be something that's discussed at this next tribal council. And on the topic of seeing Rome get humbled, I would love to see Rome get humbled. And I would love for it to be that Genevieve gets taken out. I don't think it's logical for them to take out Genevieve first over Rome, especially while he has the steal vote with the tribe number being what it is and the dynamics being what they are. But I would love to see it happen because I don't want to see him just get voted out and then he just says, oh, you guys got me, picks up his torch, walks over, shook, puts it down, torch snuffed, and then we get 10 seconds of him just being like, they were threatened by me because I kicked ass in this game and bye, bring me back for season 50. I don't want that. I want to see him get blindsided, him be shocked, just like, what the heck, guys? And then see an entire episode of him being shocked. And then, you know what? They win immunity, but next episode, guess what? It's Murgatory, and guess who goes home? It's Rome. Which, by the way, Stallings, Isaiah and I were talking about it before we started recording, but I don't know about you, but there is no player, in my opinion, that screams Murgatory more than Rome. I really feel like he's been set up to be Murgatory. Just like we've had enough of this guy, get him out. I
What do
really
you
feel
mean
like
by Murgatory?
they come together and it's before they technically merge. Like it's when
Oh, as in like the last person before jury
yeah,
time. Oh,
yeah.
okay. It's interesting though
I
because
really feel like he's being set up for that, where he's gonna get into merge, and they're just like, okay, finally we can get rid of this fucking tool. Get out, go. But I would love to see him get humbled and then just kind of drag his feet for an entire episode, and then he thinks he's gonna get some kind of footing back, and then he just goes home right away. Like I don't know. I love having a presence like this on like Rome on the season because it's so nice in Survivor having someone that is so arrogant but competent enough to be dangerous, but you get to root against them. Like he's not Russell Hands, he's certainly not Boston Rob's godson, but he's a fun player to root against, and I feel like that's really been something we've been missing for a while.
I was gonna say about Rome. So I can't tell if he's playing to win or if he's just playing for the sake of like making big moves and getting the thrill of the whole experience. Because I remember,
Um,
no, hear me out. Because
Now, can I just say, I think he thinks he's playing to win.
yeah.
because on the journey, no. I don't even know if that's true. Because on the journey, he was saying how like, oh, I'm so glad TK got voted out. I forgot what word he used to describe TK, but he was like allowed
Arrogant
out there, arrogant. There we go,
or
arrogant
cocky.
arrogant and cocky. So he's like, "Oh, I'm so glad to see him first." But he was like, he said something along the lines like, "Oh, but that's okay. I'll be like second boot," because I think he is self-aware that he is like coming across that way, that he is a bit cocky and arrogant himself. So, but at the same time, we do see some type of like rational, like strategic thinking in what he's doing in the game. So it's a bit conflicting. Like I don't know exactly where Rome's head is at, whether if he's actually playing to win or not.
No, that's fair. Um, I feel like we've focused a lot on Lava, which admittedly there's a lot to say on Lava. There we've spoken quite a bit about Tuku. We have not talking a bit about what's the yellow tribe again?
Gotta,
Gata.
gotta.
I feel like I mean Stallings, your pick is on Gata. So
My
I'll
winter
let
pick's
you
going
talk about your
strong.
personal. Yeah, you can talk about your opinions on Gata just because I feel like we really haven't touched on that tribe that much. But you can go ahead and then we'll build off whatever you put down.
I if honestly the dynamics over there are so like it's so blurred because they haven't gone to like they need to go to another tribal to fully say this is what it's going to be like in the next one, the tone. But I'm happy because I don't think Rachel is in any imminent danger. But the thing that I think about is now the whole Sam and Sierra thing was pointed out by tribes. I mean, there's plenty of time for Annika and Rachel to overthink a little bit and it's interesting that we've only seen those two come to Andy and say like because you still see those scenes of Annika like leaving Andy out of knowing the information on the journey, but it's so interesting because you feel like you only have five people there, like exactly kind of what Teeny does of having every a relationship and having a plan with every single person because for Annika, now you don't have a vote. Who do you think Andy is probably planning on writing down if Sam and Sierra are the ones getting close to him and then,
Yeah,
Rachel's not causing any rifts? Like, it's just, I can't believe that there's not more going on, especially from Annika and Rachel maybe coming to Andy and saying, hey, Sam and Sierra are obviously a duo, but it's being painted more as Annika and Rachel being a duo. So, I mean, in some
yeah,
crazy scenario, you could see Andy somehow finding himself in the middle, but in any event, it seems like we're seeing Annika still wanting to target Andy and keep that four strong. So it's looking like it's still going to be an Annika or Andy situation.
Yeah, I
yeah. I think it's
okay.
shut up, Isaiah. Shut up. I think no, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I was gonna say like I think it's pretty safe to say that Annika's gonna go. Annika doesn't have a vote. I feel like, it's just gonna tie 2-2. I feel like Sam and Sierra are just a solid like voting block. I don't see how they necessarily don't vote together. And let's say it does tie 2-2. Let's say, I don't know, they vote for Annika and they vote uh for whatever reason they want to make a big move and separate the two of them. Sam does have the idol that's only good for one tribal council. It doesn't matter if he plays it correctly or not, because if it ties in a deadlock, the person, either Sam or Sierra, whoever doesn't get the idol, is safe. So I feel like they're kind of untouchable, to be honest.
And we
Yeah.
just see no scene of them having any interest in like, because now that Annika doesn't have a vote, Rachel would need to go get at least Andy, and I guess the only inroad would be Rachel and Sierra having a relationship. That would be the only way that you could get 3-1. But realistically, I don't think we see any universe where Sierra turns on Sam this early. So the Yellow Tribe is honestly, in my opinion, the easiest dynamic to read because it's going to come down to do Sam and Sierra want to keep Andy around or do they want to keep Annika around? But the Blue Tribe for me is so much. The Red Tribe, I just have no idea, but the Blue Tribe is definitely like the one where there's just so many options and it's going to depend on those next few days for them.
Yeah, I think for the Gada tribe, it's interesting in that they went to tribal first out of these three tribes. So we've now gotten two full episodes of setup with them, which is something that I really feel like we didn't really get with this or with even with Lavo, even though they technically got two episodes without tribal, because we just saw Rome get the Sela vote, which did change the dynamics this episode. But I feel like we've had two episodes after their first tribal to build up this new narrative. So that could be why things feel so much more set in stone, comparable to the other tribes who have just had a tribal council and are just coming off of a tribal council. But I do feel like it is probably Annika that's going to go home. One thing I will say is that I believe Annika said she was only excluding Andy from the information that she doesn't have a vote. However, I do believe when she went to talk about it, was Sam there for that? I think it was just Sierra and Rachel.
I do think Sam was,
Was
I
Sam
because
there?
it's just like
Okay.
they might have cut the camera a certain way, but it's just like for
I
that
can't
scene,
remember.
like I don't think she would have like
I mean, I would
started.
assume still that that information would get around to Sam. I just
Yeah.
can't remember if he was actually there for that discussion, which is awkward because I just watched the episode, but we'll ignore that fact. I do think that it is probably Annika going on that tribe. It is interesting that Andy, I don't know, like, because from how we talked, Isaiah, after the premiere episode, we were talking, is Andy going to be the Emily, the Brandon, the Banu? What is he going to be this season? And honestly, I don't know at this point. I feel like he could find himself in a middle position, like Stallings, you said, could be possible, or at least that he's going to tie himself to Sierra and Sam for a bit and make the merge. I'm starting to think it's not impossible he makes a decent run in this game. Can he win? I don't know. I feel like this episode, particularly, he kind of found his footing a bit more. The edit showed him to be a bit more competent, where episode one, obviously, he's a fucking train wreck. He is crashing and burning. It's by God's good grace that he survives that tribal council. Episode two, he kind of stumbles ass backwards into gaining more trust with Sam, but it's still haphazard. It really doesn't feel like he can take much credit for getting himself into a better position. He just bumbled his way into that position. But episode three, it really feels like he's gaining some ground. He's getting a solid footing in this game. And maybe now that he's starting to feel a bit more like a part of the dynamic, like he's gaining some power, he's going to have the confidence to really take hold of this game. But it's so difficult because we even still saw him struggle in the challenge today. So I don't know. It's really difficult to predict where Andy was, but it's so interesting to me because Andy was, after the premiere, this Banu level figure, this holy shit, look how much of a train wreck this guy is. Like, I feel bad for him, but like, he's just not built for Survivor. But now we're settling into him, and he's had a couple quieter episodes at least compared to the premiere. And I don't know. I feel like I'm getting a bit more confidence in Andy.
I I guess I'll play devil's advocate for the sense of I still do think Andy will be pre-merge. I don't see Andy having any just based on the fact of like viewing his character. My best guess would be that the Yellow Tribe maybe loses twice
Yeah.
and they just send Andy home as like a, you know what I mean? Like they send Annika home at the next one and then they all come together and just say like, I could see Andy going crazy and then them just like at a certain point just saying, okay, it's time to go. But I'm realizing now that 45 and 46, I believe, both had tribe swaps. Because
36
46 didn't.
45 was the only one that had a tribe swap, but 44 had a weird thing that they did where they went to the
One person from
journey
each tribe
and they
swapped, and they
got a
all got an
vote.
idol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
think.
don't disagree. I'm hesitantly saying that I'm feeling more confidence in Andy. I do think the edit is portraying him more positively. I think he is getting a better grasp of the game. Do I still feel like I have a ton of confidence in him winning or making a super deep run? Really, that remains to be seen, but I'd err on the side of no. But we'll see. And I don't disagree with what you said that they take out Annika and then maybe they lose again and they take him out. I think that's something I said could happen. Maybe it was in the last episode, the last podcast that we did. I feel like that's a situation that's not unlikely that we see, that it's just like we can't afford to lose the last challenge, so we have to take out this challenge liability now while we can. I really do feel like that could be a situation that we see come to fruition. I agree with you, Stallings. Mike Stallings.
Exactly, bro. Yeah, it's so hard
Uh,
to read his character. Like, because you have those people like Emily from the past that ended up making a really good run. It's just that, and then you have people like Banu who, it was a shit show for how many episodes on end. But Emily, she came in there as like a financial analyst, and it was more of like her social game, as like her social cues were lacking, but her strategy was all there. For Andy, it's just like, it kind of just seems like he's always in outer space. Like every time you kind of look at him, you just think like his head is just in the clouds somewhere else. And I don't know how he integrate. Like there could be an argument made that he ends up getting third as like the brought to the end, just as like, blindly loyal individual. Or you could make the argument he could go next, or you could, but I just don't know where he would fall, like what the reasoning would be to get rid of him anywhere in between that, I guess, is my thing.
that's fair.
I was gonna say we
Yeah.
talked about Andy being like a Banu or Emily. I don't think Andy's either of
I
them, to
think Andy's
be
Andy.
honest. I think
Andy's Andy, man.
Andy's
He's a new
Andy.
meta.
Like Andy is not as bad as Banu now, but I don't see Andy being the type of player to have any sort of like power or agency, like really strong influence, like to actually make moves and orchestrate like things and make things happen. But I definitely can see Andy, I mean, kind of like where he is right now, finding himself in a good position as a number and a solid alliance, but I don't think he's going to be like the figurehead of anything.
Yeah. I mean, he does still feel like a main character to me, but he just also feels like he's playing his own game. Like, in a way, it feels like there's how many people are left now? 15. It feels like there are
15.
14 people playing their own game, and then
Yeah.
Andy's on the sideline doing his own thing. Like, he's his own main character, but he's not the main character of this season. Like, he's just like his own thing. Like, Andy fans are going to fucking love Andy. They're all about Andy. But Andy's not going to win. So everyone else watching the show is just like, I can appreciate Andy, but he's over there. He's doing his own thing. That's cool. And then he'll get taken out eventually. But I do agree that beyond that, he gets taken out after Annika and then that tribe loses again. I find it really difficult to predict exactly where he could go after that point, should he make it past that point. But I also feel like you could say that about a lot of different people this season. They're like, how far does everyone predict Saul's going to go if he makes it through this bout? How long is everyone going to make it through? It's really difficult so early on. You have to remember that we're only 3 episodes in. My winner pick just got taken out after I predicted her to win the first episode. Things happen, shit changes. So it's really, really difficult to predict exactly what direction this season's going to go. I will, however, say that I still do hold true. I think Sam, I would still predict him to be a mid-merge boot. I feel like he's going to be already. I mean, we've already seen he's seen as the figurehead by the other tribes. We have that touched on this episode. We see that he's being a perceived duo with Sierra. So I feel like Sam's one of the people, at least, that I can think of off the top of my head, that I really don't see winning. Although I do see him making a decent run, but eventually just being a big threat that you have to get rid of.
I agree with you. I think for me, obviously, it's tough to see like where people are going to place, just because like you can only go based off like I guess their previous seasons. But I have no idea how these people are going to interact with the other tribes. Like, how is Rachel going to interact with Rome? How is Soul going to interact with Tiana? It's like it's so tough for me to visualize because it feels like every tribe just has their specific dynamic that they're cultivating and like they have those personalities that are going only with each other. But then you think like, what does I mean, everybody, the only person that I feel like everyone has a strict, like similar opinion on is Andy, just because of what he did on the beach. Everyone, you know, if he gets to the merge, you could definitely like predict him being a little bit like left out of the main occasions, and then
Charlie Brown. Hey,
maybe you see someone
maybe
like
he's
Keyshawn.
Owen from 43.
It's so interesting though, because Owen was like, Owen was just a little bit all over the place, but like Andy was literally like, people question like, did he pass like the mental psychological
God.
tests before
Yeah.
he came on Survivor? Because what is going on? Like because you had moments where you're like, oh my God, like this, like Liz from the other season, like you had moments where it was like, wow, Liz is kind of crazy, but then Liz was also like social and she was strategic and everything like that. But Andy is so like literally like what Kyle said, like he's on his own island. He is doing his own thing. So it's like, how do these people deal with him? It seems like Sam wants to pick him up, but then like what does everybody else from other tribes with their own strategies, what do they do with him? Because they clearly, you can't trust him necessarily with any information to not spill out to the entire tribe.
Yeah. I do think it is interesting, and it is just, I don't know, like I really appreciate this season for across 3 episodes. I really feel like I have a decent grasp of who everyone is, again, besides Genevieve. But that is
Kyle's
something that I'm
favorite.
really interested in. And maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's because my winner pick got taken out. But I know, Isaiah, you and I said, and maybe Fisher said this too, or even we just said this off the podcast, but it really did feel like at the beginning of the season that it's a woman's season to win. And I majorly still agree with that, but I feel like we are getting a bit more from some of the men this season to where I'm saying it's not impossible that a man could win. Like Kashawn, I think had a pretty decent episode this season or this episode. Like I'm not entirely counting out Kashawn now. Sam is shown to be really competent in the game right now, but I do still feel like he has that dark omen of just being like too big of a threat. Andy is doing his own thing. I feel like I don't know. I feel like maybe it's just because he's such a big character and we've already seen him come a decent ways in 3 episodes, but maybe he has a shot. But really, I just feel like we're getting a bit more from the men this season. They're being a bit more developed as players to where I won't count them out, but I do still feel like it's majorly a woman's season to win. Although now with my winner pick out, I don't know who it's going to be.
I was gonna ask you, Kyle. So now that I mean, it's not like you get a do-over. You like lost the prediction or
No,
whatever.
I do.
But
I do. I get to do them.
if you can pick someone else right now that Asia's out of the game, who would you pick as your winner pick?
Oh gosh. I mean, it would be between I would like to say Sue, but too much of Sue seems too good to be true. And I do still feel
No,
like
it's
we
not.
got a bit of that arrogant side to her. But at the same time, it feels like you're supposed to be rooting for Sue right now. So maybe it's just like the edit's telling us that Sue's underestimated. She's saying she's underestimated by men. So I feel like maybe we're supposed to be rooting for her and she's just going to go all the way and win. That's not impossible. Teeny is somebody that's really, really strong. Teeny kind of reminds me of Evie. I think they just have the same vibe. Evie from 41. Like they kind of give me a similar vibe, but not exactly. Kashawn, who I touched on, I feel like is not out of it. Rome is probably my main contender. Beyond that, what? Well, I'll go. Um, I want to go with one of my obvious ones, which would be like Teeny, or Sue, and even Sierra. So I would say I would choose Sierra or Kashawn, but for my purposes now, I'll just say Kashawn.
It's a
Hopefully
good.
he doesn't go next episode. Hopefully he doesn't go next
I
episode.
doubt he would. I mean, I think Keyshawn will go far.
I
I
didn't think Asia
view
was
him
going to
as
go
like
either. So
I do get the like working in the shadows for a while, and then Keyshawn gets
yeah,
taken out just because, especially with the way he kind of was at tribal council, like I could totally see him, viewing himself as very intelligent and then getting to that certain point where um people realize him as like a huge social threat and then he goes home. But I am telling you, I am sticking on Rachel. I am like
Not a bad
I
pick.
can visualize her in the final three talking to the jury like as we speak. And I actually have a lot of trouble like definitely, it's not the person I pick last by any means, but I'm having a lot of trouble seeing the vision on Sue. I really just the way that her personality comes across, like, the way that like all the I don't know if it's Botox. I don't know what it is, but it's like it's a lot. Sue is a lot, and I struggle to find the people on the other tribes meshing with her so incredibly well that she ends up like winning. You know what I mean?
I mean, I feel like it is a big thing, and it's something that's very highlighted in her story is being underestimated. And I feel like if she is going to win, that is the cornerstone of her game is her being underestimated, and that's going to be the biggest thing to look for. Is maybe she is just going to be arrogant, and that's how we're perceiving her, and that's accurate. But I feel like, and that's the problem that I have, why I'm so conflicted on Stu, is that I do feel like she was arrogant this episode, just completely saying, nope, not working with Kyle. She voted for me, done, can't even consider it, can't forgive that. Which I get on a game level. If I was Stu, I'd be insanely wary of working with Kyle. But to just say absolutely not, and just like no, just no, 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 no. I know guys like Kyle, absolutely not. No, I'm like no, no, and it comes across to me like arrogance, but at the same time, I feel like the edit is so much wanting to view us as an underdog that it's difficult for me to really count her out. And I feel like underestimated Sue is going to kind of be her character this season, and she's going to have a really, really strong game. Whether or not she wins, I can so easily imagine the path to where she does win, just being underestimated the whole time, and then she's a great FTC. But at the same time, that feels so obvious. Like it feels way too easy. So it's really, really difficult for me. And to touch on your winner pick, Stylings, I do agree. I find it really difficult to imagine Rachel ever getting taken out. Like, why does anyone take out Rachel? I don't know exactly. She seems like I could somebody that like the easiest place for me to imagine her is at the end. Do I imagine her winning necessarily? I both do and I don't. It's really, really difficult. She's just somebody and one of the main people on this cast. I find it so difficult to really imagine them placing in any particular spot. I just don't know how they're gonna do.
I was gonna say like Stallings, you said like Sue is like a lot or whatever, but Marianne was a lot. Like I feel like Jam
True.
Jam was kind of a lot. Marianne was underestimated and had a very good final tribal council. So I don't think it's completely impossible to see like a Sue win. Of course I'm gonna defend Sue because that's my winner pick, but yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, we've seen my best guess for Sue is that I'm going to continue the trend from recent seasons where we see the older, um, very, threat of an older woman go home fifth, go home at final five. We've seen Maria, we've seen Julie, we've seen Janet. Um, there's been a bunch of times where, you have that really rootable person like Sue as like, the older woman that's underestimated and she beats out all the guys. Like I just see Sue being a huge, huge threat. Especially, going into the merge. And it's hard to believe people like Rachel or Keyshawn or Teeny or anyone else wouldn't notice that immediately. You know what I mean? Because she's just the type of person, especially like that's why I wouldn't pick like Sam as my winner pick because he's the big dude out there. He's like the macho, like, now he's like all strategic and everything, and he's got like his alliance, he's got like Sarah right next to him, and he's got the idol and everything. Like it's just one of those people that how could you not want him out at one point or another?
Yeah, that's fair. Beyond that, I'll say this because it's something that we touched on right at the beginning of the season, and I feel like I noticed it a lot more now. It's because he also got more screen time, but I noticed Saul a lot. And I really like Saul. Saul is somebody that I feel like I would, if I were on the island, I would love working with him on a personal level, but he scares me because at least now that we've seen a bit more of him, he's not Roxroy. He's not, Ken from season 33. He's not just a loyal older guy who's just going to be there and stick with his alliance. I feel like he's smarter than that, at least seen, or at least in opposition to Rome, he's seen as the more rootable figure. and he's seen as a bit smarter than Rome is, at least, even though Rome came out on top in this last vote. I don't know. I think Saul maybe is just really, really rootable, but I want to see Saul do really well in this game. Whether or not that actually happens, I don't know. Saul's another person that I find it really difficult to place. He could go next, he could go far. It's really, really difficult for me to see. I feel like it's too obvious for him to just go next tribal council, especially with how much the audience is obviously supposed to root against Rome. So I'm not exactly sure.
Uh, yeah.
Okay. How's everyone feeling?
Uh, I was gonna say, whatchamacallit. I don't know. For some reason, I feel like we're not the only ones have said this. Like, I don't know what it is about Soul, just like that gut feeling like this guy is gonna like do well or go far. I mean, I was seriously considering like picking him as my winner pick, even though we had like maybe like 5 seconds of him episode one. I don't know what it is about him. He just like gives off this like presence of he's gonna do well.
Mhm.
It's his like just calm
He's an
and
aura.
it's the aura of just like he's so calm and he's like reasonable and rational. Like, I said like The Office where like you see Rome doing something crazy and you just see him acting like, a normal person. He's also kind of a demogra I think it does have something to do with demographic. I think he's someone, that we don't see every time on Survivor. You've got this like he's not too old, but he's not also like one of the young people, and it's like this, middle-aged Asian guy that like he's a bigger dude, and it's like what because when you have people who are a little bit, he's definitely the brute force on his tribe. Like it's nowhere near like Jonathan from 42 or anything, but that's the category he's falling into, and it's odd because you don't really know where to place him because you have people like I don't know. You have people like Teeny, for example, where you can mention things like, oh, we've seen like Evie before, of like, you've seen that kind of player and like that personality and exactly how they're operating. But with him, you just really don't know. And he's also so mysterious
Yeah.
because we haven't seen before this episode, you really didn't see much of him. So I'm curious.
Honestly, you know what kind of vibe is Earl Cole like a bad comparison? Like maybe he doesn't have the game sense of Earl Cole, we don't know, but just like that calming, a bit older guy, I kind of get that vibe from him. And it's also just I do agree with you. It's nice that we don't exactly get this demographic because I feel like the MO of the new generation, the new era of Survivor is these younger frenetic game bots, and that's kind of like the meta that we've seen, and we've seen archetypes stick out from that every single season. Those are just characters. That's how every season works. But to see someone like Saul, and especially someone that, at least from what we've been presented with so far, someone competent that also has the personality of Saul, is really nice to see. Because I mean, we had Mike, but Mike was also just like he's gonna betray his allies, but he's not going to admit it, and that's just kind of that was like Mike Turner's MO from 42. We had Roxroy, who just complained about his nagging wife. We have had those older guys, but something about Saul just feels different for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway,
To be honest,
I do we have
I
anything
think
more to touch
we
on?
I think we kind of covered everything unless anybody has anything they want to say.
All right.
Does
Well,
like
Stallings, you've seen the first two. Shut up, Isaiah. You've seen the first two episodes of the Survivor Conquest podcast,
Oh,
so you know obviously what we do is that we do one regular prediction at the end of every episode and one bold prediction, one crazy thing that we're going to think. Isaiah has had two bold predictions come true. His first one, I don't remember what it was. That was too long ago. And his second one was that Genevieve was going to get a confessional, and he just made the cut. She got one. But
okay.
any predictions? I mean, Isaiah, what were you going to say? Sorry, I cut you off, but what were you going to say,
no,
Isaiah?
no, I was actually going to say what you just said, leading into
Okay.
this prediction thing. I don't know. Does anybody want to go first? I still have to think about mine. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, I'll kind of ramble for a bit. I feel like I'll do a brief prediction. I think for which tribe goes to tribal council, that's difficult. I'm going to guess, I'm going to say we see, what's the Gada? I think we're going to see the yellow Gada tribe go to tribal council. I think we're going to see Annika go home. That's my base prediction. Or I'm going to go with a bold prediction, and I'm gonna say we go to Tuku goes to tribal council. We see Gabe go home. I mean, maybe that's just like wishful thinking, but maybe we could see that happen. And a really, really bold prediction is Genevieve gets two confessionals next episode.
That's
Two.
too bold. Okay. I mean, I would say for my regular prediction, I think Yellow Tribe loses next. And then maybe followed by Blue. Like I actually do think my regular predictions, I think Red Tribe's gonna be left alone for a little bit. I think we're gonna see a little bit less of them. For my bold prediction, I would say that we see at least one or possibly two more idle plays pre-merge. I think that's going to be my bold prediction because
That's bold. That's bold.
we're already two more than the last season. So, I really do think so.
Wait, is
Especially the
this the
way with
most
this is
was sorry for cutting you off. Was Rome's idle play the most successful idle play since 45? He negated one vote.
45, there
yeah,
was
I
a successful idol play. I don't think it was a shot in the dark. That
Yes,
was.
there was.
Caleb's shot in the dark
No,
was
no.
nuts.
Julie played an idol.
Oh wait, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
True. But that one
I
was
didn't even
like
see that season.
I forgot.
the only issue is the
Also,
Julie
I
like
actually, one thing I will say, which sorry for cutting you both off
no,
again, but having not seen most of 45 and I didn't see any of 46, I really liked the longer episodes. I feel like I'm getting a much more fleshed out
yes.
cast because of this. This is really, really nice. We had enough time for a journey that wasn't 10 minutes long and took away from half the tribe getting or half the cast getting confessionals. I'm loving having longer episodes. I wish we could get a bit more camp life. We got a little bit of that this episode, but I really am loving getting to know this cast a lot more. This has been really, really fun. But I'll let you guys take over. I'll be quiet for a while.
Oh, you're good, man. I was what were we on right before that?
Bold
Um,
predictions.
For the
Your
bold
bold prediction
prediction.
of two idle plays, and then talking about most successful idle plays in the new
oh
era
yeah, no, I
a
was
little
just
bit.
gonna say because Julie, for example, like hers was different because it was like everybody we knew everybody was writing Julie's name down. Julie knew everybody was writing her name down. So it was the only surprise was that she was, you know, who was she gonna pick? But I don't know. I think this season, especially, I was shocked that I don't really follow the timelines of filming, but they've seen 46. That's what
Yeah,
shocks me the most is that, like, you know what I mean? They've seen last season, so they know, like,
yeah.
they
Rest,
know.
rest in peace to anyone who hadn't seen 46 but was just going to watch this new season before that, because now they know everyone that goes out with an idol.
Yeah, honestly, that, like, it's still worth it. It's still
Yeah.
worth it to watch. That's my favorite New Era
Yeah. All
season.
right, Isaiah, you've had plenty of time to think. End us off here. I want your regular prediction and your bold prediction. Let's hear it.
All right, my regular prediction, I guess I'll give two regular predictions because one is like completely different from like what you guys said. My regular prediction would be that two idols get found. So the new Lavo idol and the new Tuku idol is going to be found next episode. In terms of like who goes to tribal council, I'm gonna be a bit different. I'm gonna say Blue goes to tribal council and they vote out like Kyle or like Tiana. I'm gonna say Tiana because I feel like Kyle's like more likable and stuff. They might want to keep him. My bold prediction though, Lavo is gonna go to tribal council. Rome and Genevieve are gonna vote together. Rome's gonna use the steal a vote and make a big move and blindside one of the bigger players. That's my
Wouldn't that be crazy if we see like Teeny go home here? Like,
that
damn.
that would be
Just don't
crazy.
know if it would be possible, honestly. Just the way
Honestly, like amazing season, like seeing like imagine like Sue and Teeny get take out. I feel like those are my top two in terms of like classic winner contenders. They're doing the best. Like they have the least negative content about them currently. I feel like imagine like those two go next. Like that would be insane. Just like what the fuck happens now? Isaiah would be in shambles, but I mean Stallings would just be like, Rachel's got this on lock.
I
She's
know
got this on
I've
lock.
been saying it, bro. When we come back genuinely though, like if we come back here and find out that like Rachel has gone home, like at
You're gonna
least
cry.
there's no way it's for me. Like I can't imagine it being pre-merged, and let alone I still don't believe it'll be merged.
That's
So
fair.
if she gets got anytime in the near future, there's gonna be a lot to talk about because I just don't
Mhm.
see any reality of it.
Stallings will be demanding another appearance on the official Survivor Conquest podcast.
I'll show up as a special guest for hopefully not for Rachel's boot, but if it does happen.
We're saving
Well,
you for that.
If Rachel does win, then I guess you and Jonah Boyer will be special guest for the finale because we keep
Oh
joking
yeah, we are.
about
We're
like
saving
Jonah's
Jonah Boyle. I mean, he literally watched the premiere episode 120 times. Like that's how dedicated he is. Where do you think we got all those views?
125 times
Yeah,
last
where do you think we
check.
got all those views? You think
He
those
did
are
not
unique
watch it
viewers?
120. Nobody watched that.
No, no. He
No.
said he watched the first 25 minutes, which to all the viewers who don't know us and don't know who Jonah is, which I'm sure there's a lot of you, you're gonna love Jonah. The episode he's on is probably gonna be like 3 hours long.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that version.
Okay, well, I've said my pieces, way too many of them. I'm ready to end it off here. Thank you so much. If you guys have anything to say, let them have it.
I do not have anything to
I'll
say.
let I do his outro, but I mean, I'll just say thank you, Survivor Conquest, for having me on this
Of course,
amazing podcast. I
of
don't know
course.
who the special guest is going to be in following weeks or anything, but I can't wait to keep watching and I can't wait to keep listening. You all of
Yep.
you at home tuning in, do not miss any of these episodes. Do not get anything spoiled from you. And if you haven't, go watch Survivor 46 because out of all the new era, that's been my biggest recommendation. So, Isaiah, sign us off.
Yeah, so I mean I will say I think 45 is a little bit better. But anyway, 45 is my favorite. But yeah, thank you for watching the Survivor Conquest podcast. Like every YouTuber would say, please subscribe so that you don't miss another episode of the recaps. And that is all I have.
Like the video, hit that
Smash
magic
that like
subscribe
button with
button,
your
save to
nose.
watch later, buy YouTube Premium, download the video, play it as you sleep, as you drive, as you shower, as you fuck. Do it.
All right, see you guys later.